Hello, Namaskar, welcoming all to this forum of Shepreneurs on the free day of International Women's Day. March 8th, International Women's Day, a moment to celebrate the social, economic, and political achievements of women across the globe. Hello, I'm Anila Rampuria from Delhi, a mentor to entrepreneurs and initiatives and founder of Music Veranda and Green Veranda, two soulful initiatives that we sprouted during the quarantine times. And I'm a privileged moderator of the evening. I just use the word shepreneurs, which has been curated by the authors of the book Dhool Dhoop Dhaka. To call Dhool Dhoop Dhaka a book is an underestimation, as it is a complete ecosystem in itself. As a part of the ecosystem, I have a lot of gratitude to them, to the books, to the author of this book for having conceived this panel discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Arun and Deepak ji. A little about background of women entrepreneurship. Women were primarily taking care of their core responsibilities of managing homes and families, which in itself is such a big task in itself until World War II, where due to shortage of workforce, women had to embrace one more role to actively participate in the economic activities, and the results have been phenomenal. COVID, which is a warlike situation, in fact, we can set this as a zero button, where GDP growth of almost all economies have been negative or zero. And globally, there is a lot of change happening. And with work from home, women entrepreneurship will see a big change and sprout. Before I move into the session, I would request Dr. Arun Lal and Mr. Deepak Gharge to welcome the panelists and say a few words on the pretext of this discussion and about the beautiful, beautiful book, Dhool Dhoop Dhakka. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Anila, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I will start. Thanks all the panelists. Welcome for this panel discussion. We are privileged that all of you accepted, though for some of you it was short notice. Women entrepreneurship is one of the key roles when you talk about entrepreneurship. And we going forward after some years, we do not want to distinguish between gender specific women or male entrepreneurship. It should be just entrepreneurship. But women play a very important role in building the economy, the society, the values, the culture, the adaptability, and women can manage a lot than men, and that is the that is the true statement and true respect for every mother, wife, daughter, sister, and everybody who's playing this role. Dhul Dhuk Dhakka is it started as a book where we had 14 stories from India and US. It covers 9 sectors, 3 niche sectors, 2 women entrepreneurs, and 2 advisories. And we were privileged to have these entrepreneurs to make it to our first book. And for us, it was a very experiential journey. We learned a lot from these entrepreneurs. Dhul Dhup Dhakka means it's a process. Dhul is dirtying your hands, knowing the system in entirety, your business entirety. Dhup is going in the sun, rain, and understanding your market, customers, everything around that, competition. And Dhaka is perseverance, never give up attitude. If an entrepreneur goes through these stages, then he or she designs uh, the correct entrepreneurial framework for them, with the success mantra for them. So entrepreneurship is not by luck or accident or by just happens. It is a design which is Dhool Dhoop Dhakka. So it ironically or fortunately, all the words fall start with the letter D, Dhool Dhoop Dhakka, and design. So the next letter is E, entrepreneurship. So 4 Ds followed by the E. So Dhool Dhoop Dhakka is just not a book; it is also an ecosystem where we are privileged to mentor entrepreneurs and take it to the next level. Arunji, please go ahead and talk about our definition sheepreneurs.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I welcome everyone. Thank you for being a part of this panel. Now, okay, the book Dhool Dhoop Dhakka, we, Deepak and I have been working on this for a long time. And the core theme is that it is entrepreneurship by design. As Deepak already mentioned, not by luck or accident or magic, but by design. And this design, anyone can have his or her own design and be successful. So we encourage everyone to design whatever they want, whatever the outcome they want. So when we were writing this book, we captured the learnings from successful entrepreneurs, and that is for everyone to read. We have also women entrepreneurs as a part of the book, and Dr. Shalini is here. She is also part of the book. Now, I would want to read something from the book. So this is there. I'm reading it. Acknowledging women entrepreneurs, shepreneurs. We acknowledge and appreciate the direct and indirect contribution of women entrepreneurs, which is priceless. And we refer to them as shepreneurs. So shepreneurs is a term that we have coined, and we want all shepreneurs to be successful and to make their mark in the society. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And we are indeed grateful. You know, women entrepreneurs, they need a very strong and amazing setup and ecosystem like this. So thank you so much. And I would like to introduce the esteemed panel. We have a wonderful, wonderful panel here, and of 6 women entrepreneurs. So I would like to start with Dr. Mandeep Rai. Dr. Mandeep Rai, good evening and welcome to this forum. You are the international best-selling author, speaker, thinker, 50, class of 2021, advisor, NED and executive board member, founder and CEO, investor, broadcast journalist, first Women of Media Award, World Economic Forum, and TEDx speaker. Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. Author of the Values Compass. Dr. Mandeep Rai is a global authority on values, working with companies, institutions, and individuals around the world. She has traveled to more than 150 countries and reported as a broadcast journalist for BBC, World Service, and Reuters, among others. Mandeep ji studied philosophy, politics, and economics, and has an MSc in development from the London School of Economics, and completed an MBA at London Business School with a year at Harvard Business School and MIT. She also holds a PhD in global values. And so that's your profile, Dr. Mandeep, and I'm really happy to have you. Hello.
Hello, I'm very glad to be here. Good morning from me from London.
Oh, okay. Great. So now I'd like to read the profile of Anubhav Prasad ji. Anubhav Prasad, she is the founder of CEO of Kare Keba Ventures. Kare Keba, that means we must in Bhojpuri. An incubation cum impact investment platform for homegrown startups and innovation-driven business in underserved geographies of India, what we call Bharat. Founded in October 2020, Kare Kaba, I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Almost there.
Okay.
It is Anila ji. It is Kare ke ba.
Kare ke ba. Okay.
Karne ka hai. We have to do it.
Oh, acha. Very nice. So Kare ka ba is curating high potential startups from Bharat and mentoring them for scaling up and building their investment readiness, which is followed up by securing investments for them. Anubhaji has worked as National Coordinator India at the UN Environment Program, leading projects. So she is an electrical engineer, an MBA, and a certified associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers. She has 23 years of experience at Small Industries Development Bank of India. So I welcome Anubhaji to this forum. Hello, Anubhaji.
Hi, Anila. Thanks for the wonderful introduction.
Oh, so next I move to Anumina. She's the founder of AgroWave, Forbes 30 under 30. She belongs to a small village, Manoli in Rajasthan. She has completed her schooling from government Hindi medium school in the village. She graduated from IIT Delhi in 2016. And after that, she worked in an American startup for a very small time. She started AgroWave in 2017 to solve problems of her grandfather and many farmers. She has been recognized by many media that is listed into Forbes 30 under 30 Asia top 10 innovator of India by India Today magazine and many more. She has been a public speaker, a TEDx speaker, Wired Next Generation Japan, conference speaker, and speaker in many more events, where she has inspired many young entrepreneurs through her journey. She has been mentor as well as in many events, Also, she has been awarded by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment and Global Gandhi Award 2019. Welcoming you, Anumina ji, to this forum. Hi, how are you? Yes, anyway, I move to Dr. Shalini Nalwar. She's a chairperson at ICATT Foundation. So ICATT Foundation and Mysore University. And she has written a new chapter in the aeromedical field of India. And her tagline, her motto is, even the sky is not the limit if you can save a life in the sky. So wonderful having you. And Silky, she has just shared her introduction. I would just like to read it. Yeah. Silky Jain Marwa. She's executive director at Tula's Institute, an eminent professional and educationist. She is a Dehradun and Gurgaon-based independent entrepreneur, presently positioned as the executive director and head corporate relations of Tula's Institute, Dehradun. She has been actively following a dynamic marketing strategy so as to place the institute on the national map. After completing her schooling from Doon's esteemed institution and pursuing her higher education from Symbiosis Institute of Design, Pune, she has commenced with her professional journey at the young age of 22 and has evolved to become a global educationist. So, to add to her honor, she has been recipient of the Inspiring Women Edu Leader in the year 2014 by Engineering Watch, Education Evangelist 2015 by Skilltree, certification in leadership from Oxford University, London in 2015, certification in leadership from Harvard University, USA in 2017, and today's Women's Award by iNext in 2017, India's top women leaders in education 2020, among several others. So I think this profile is like so mega. अब सभी लोगों का profile इतना it's so complete, so accomplished that I'm feeling overwhelmed. So welcoming everyone to this forum, and I think we can start with the questions. Yes, tell me.
Yeah, Anila, just 1 second. We
जी
have
बताएं.
Smita Purushottam. Unfortunately, she can't attend today.
Yes,
Arunji,
yes.
can you just play her message, please? Smita Purushottam is the former ambassador to
Yes,
Switzerland.
Deepak, what I'll do is I can read her profile and the message we can read towards like, as the program proceeds. How do you say?
So let's read her message first and let's
Okay.
begin.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure. So Smita Purushottam, she's the founder, Sitara, former ambassador to Switzerland, ambassador with a history of envisioning and pursuing fresh ideas and delivering on them, bringing innovative ideas into the government machinery and delivery of foreign policy. Served in diverse and interesting countries, skilled in forecasting, public speaking, management, writing, and leadership. Dedicating henceforth to promote a scientific spirit and making India a scientific state through a new Do Tank Sitara, a science, indigenous technology, and advanced research accelerator in India. So, Smita ji, she was supposed to join us, but due to some personal commitment, she's not able to. So, she has sent her message across to us, and I would request Arun ji to kindly share that message. Over to Arun ji. Can you unmute yourself, Arunji? Yes.
Are you able to hear the message?
No, not
No,
yet.
Arunji, you have to go to Zoom setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Screen share करके.
Screen share करके नीचे.
Sir, screen share with sound.
Just a minute.
In the last few years, but when you compare
Are you able to
many indices,
hear
Yes,
now?
we are.
for example,
We started from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, I'll restart it.
R&D
Just
investment of other countries,
yeah.
eradicated. Good afternoon. I'm truly honored to have been selected by Sri Deepak Katke for this with some of the most inspiring lady entrepreneurs our country has produced. In fact, I don't even belong here because I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm running a not-for-profit trust dedicated to promoting domestic companies. This is based, our actions are based on our analysis that the legacy of the license Raj, which has not been completely eradicated, skewed domestic public procurement practices, and lack of R&D investment are responsible for India's chronic poverty. Of course, we have made a lot of progress in the last few years, but when you compare many indices, for example, India's R&D investment with those of other countries, you are struck by the enormous divergence between what we invest for future readiness and what other countries do. Similarly, in domestic procurement, enormous value has been shipped abroad because our agencies have specialized in skewing domestic procurement in favor of foreign companies. So the multipliers that should have been acting in our country to promote domestic growth, employment creation, and high-tech upgradation has been completely lacking and has actually been invested abroad. Now, we have been bringing these issues to the attention of the higher authorities, and we have been very successful in this. A lot of reforms have taken place. Domestic procurement practices have been changed, but implementation is still tardy and not to our satisfaction. So we continue our struggle to sensitize the authorities and work with them and with medium and small enterprises to hopefully improve their chances and improve, in fact, the business environment in our country for fabulous companies such as those led by the incredible ladies on this panel. I truly apologize for not being able to be present for this because of some personal exigencies. And I wish all of you enormous luck, and I hope that I could also be in touch with you in the future. Thank you so much for
Wonderful.
having me here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Smita Purushottamji, for sharing this wonderful message. It's inspiring, and we are really missing you. And we hope to hear you very soon. So, can we start with the question answers? Can we, Arunji?
Yeah,
So,
please.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. So I think the first question that we can have is from Dr. Mandeep Rai, who is logging in from London. So, good morning. And the question to her is, COVID has reset the world to zero, where every country is in the same stage. Those countries will progress where participation of women is going to be more liberal and there is more freedom and social respect. How do you think the world will change for women entrepreneurs in the next decade? And I would just like to refer a graph, a growth graph of various countries, which Arunji will share, which can be more relevant to this question. Yeah, in the meantime, yeah.
So shall I speak while we're just sharing the graph, maybe?
Yeah, you can start. You can start.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think immediately, actually, COVID has been quite difficult for women entrepreneurs in the sense that you're finding all the household chores, as well as homeschooling children, as well as looking after sometimes older members of the family, doing everything that normally you could get help for, having to do it yourself because we've been sometimes in a state of lockdown, or you haven't been able to have people come into the household, has made this particularly difficult for women. So that as well as having to do their work, they're having to be chef, they're having to be school teacher, they're having to be IT support. Many roles are having to be played within the same day. And it's very hard to take a block of time and to be able to work in a concentrated fashion. But going forward, over the next 10 years, I have great optimism for shepreneurs, because I think that COVID has shown that it doesn't matter where you are, and especially if you're working from home, that you can be just as productive, if not more. So it's created a very level playing field, and this playing field will have a great advantage for women, because it means that even if you're not able to go to the office, even if you have young children, even if you're nursing at home, you can still be part of the workforce, or you can still be an entrepreneur, and you can still be treated with the same amount of respect and the same amount of dignity and seriousness as if you were going to the office in a male environment. So essentially, over time,
so wonderful, very nice, beautiful thoughts, and so that's. I think we are losing voice.
We can hear you.
Anila, we can hear you.
Okay. Right. So do I move to next question, or would you like to add something more? Anybody else wants to add something, please? Right. So I move to the next question, which is directed to Anubhaji. The question is, what difficulties the women are facing today when it comes to establishing a startup or moving out of their comfort zone? Is it mindset? Is it support? Is it self-motivation? Is it social pressure, fear, or what?
Thanks, Anila, and thanks everyone for having me on this panel. So I would say that it's a mix of everything that you mentioned. So when we started Karekiba Ventures, the idea was to make entrepreneurship more and more inclusive in terms of making Bharat the fertile ground for innovation and entrepreneurship. So this is women-led enterprises. They present another dimension of inclusion. So I've worked for most of my life. I've worked in the corporate sector, first in SIDBI and then with the UN. Not exactly a corporate sector, but then of course it's an organization which is a well-oiled machinery. So while we've done a lot to shatter the glass ceilings in top echelons of the corporate world, and we have a very strong representation now of women in the different hierarchies as well as on the boards of the company, thanks to SEBI regulation as well. However, there is a lot to be aspired and achieved in terms of women entrepreneurs. Of course, biases and prejudices are one part of the story, and the numbers support the thesis. If you look at the VC funding to women-led startups, it is less than 17% of the overall funding. Then a strong reason could be said that women-led businesses are actually lesser in numbers, and business is considered the domain of go-getters, and it's not a very preferred option for a woman. However, although we have some very great examples here of women-led enterprises, a few of them are there in this panel as well. However, just look at the data from the US of A. I'm not talking about a developing country. So there's a Harvard study which says that women were awarded only about 25% of the money they asked for to fund their startups. However, men, by contrast, were awarded about 52% of their asks. So that is clearly a case of prevailing biases. So, and another dimension of the bias is that for the same kind of traits which a man can have in his personality or in his dealings or in the way he perceives the things, for the same kinds of behavioral patterns, a woman would be termed unfavorably. So for example, I have this very interesting study which says that if a person for the same kind of attributes, a male person can be termed young and promising. However, a woman can be termed young and inexperienced. For the same kind of competence, male person can be called very impressive competence. For a woman, it would be lacks network contacts. So aggression for men, it's a good thing. For women, it is unpleasant. So these kind of biases are there. And apart from biases, there are difficulties at familial levels. wherein you have a lot of challenges in terms of the gender roles as the society and the family perceives it. That's another part of another dimension of the kind of challenges women face. And of course, support system which lacks. And when I was mentoring women entrepreneurs in Sydney, thousands of them I mentored. So this was a very, very clear cut observation that the family support, so wherever family support was there, women tend to excel. However, family support is one very, very important differentiator, which marks a successful woman apart from an unsuccessful one. So, Anila, in short, I would say that it's a mix of factors, and everything that you said, support, biases, the ecosystem, everything is responsible for the kind of challenges that women face in their entrepreneurial journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, beautifully answered. Thank you very much. So, coming back to the title, what attributes or character a woman needs to build and develop to become the game changers? So, this question is directed to Shalini. I'm reading the question again. Coming back to the title, which is Shepreneurs, what attributes or character a woman needs to build and develop to become the game changer?
Right. I think it's an extremely interesting question because that's a very gender non-specific question, I would say, because the attributes equally man and woman need to have to build a successful and ethical platform or a business or a entrepreneurship like. If you ask as a woman, what is the extra attributes you need to have to be a game changer or to build a successful thing? As we all kind of know, like if woman is as we were just kind of mentioned, aggressive or ambitious, it's always looked down upon as greed or like, uncaring. This is a challenge women start with. The baseline itself is kind of lower than what a man would start. Having said that, like once a woman overcomes a challenge, like, it's the challenges are there for everyone. Like I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm whatever we may be. I think this is there for all of us. Having these kind of criteria that has to be met with equal diligence for a woman, because if a man comes home late, like, there's always a hot food on the table, and if a woman comes late, she has to go run to kitchen and start making it all over, or make sure the family is fed before she gets some food for herself. So this is what we start with at home. And even before we have to rush out, there are certain things we need to make sure. And once kind of all these things are addressed, as I said, that we start with a lower baseline than you guys normally. And I don't think so men would really appreciate what exactly we go through. However, like, once we overcome this challenge, I think when we reach the success with whatever we build, with the leadership with women, what's the kind of a thing which always comes along is compassion. If you look at Jacinda, like the New Zealand thing, and the Finnish Prime Minister, they all have come up and managed their countries successfully during this COVID, along with a lot of compassion. I think that's one thing which woman brings along with her, with the success stories. There's always a 360 degree she looks at any kind of a business she does. I come from aeromedical field, and as an anesthetist and an intensive care doctor, I think I've chosen the most difficult path among the doctors, and most difficult path among other career options, which could have been like if I could have picked. So, but one thing like always walked with is like, empower other women with you. We are the only ones who will be able to understand the other girl or a woman who's working along with you and tagging along with you. And of course, although like the workforce among women in aeromedical is very, very low, like, we can count number of women who work. Less than I think 20% of the world has like, women leaders in terms of CEOs or PMs or MPs or whatever you take. And even if you look at the pre-hospital emergency world, less than in the Western world, like pre-hospital emergency doesn't exist in India. Even if you look at UK, we are only less than 15% of the women pick this career. So when you have to lead this among the men or the man's world, which is the most male-dominated world, and if you look, I was in an aviation meet just last week at the Rotary Society wing of India, And there were like 25 panelists like from across the world. And to be honest, I was the only woman. I felt a little lonely, but at the same time, like I think when we achieve anything what we should, the reward is double. That's what I think we all should bear in mind as well. Like, see, if I was not a woman, I wouldn't be sitting here and talking and addressing everyone. So that comes with the privilege and also a lot of challenges. I think, again, immaterial of the gender, ethics, perseverance, and hard work will always take woman or a man wherever they want.
Wonderful. So at least there
Anila,
was
just
one.
before-
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Deepalji. Yes.
Anila, Deepak here. Just one
Haan,
question to Dr. Shalini. Yeah, Shalini, I know the field you're operating is one of the most toughest field which you have chosen. How do you balance family and work? Because I know you've sacrificed many things on vacation. So
I was
because
also
that
very
is something
curious to
where,
ask this.
women are always asked.
It is a damn difficult balance. It's damn difficult. And we have to sacrifice a lot. It's not like literally when I'm talking to you, we are initiating ECMO in indoor. That is a bypass on a patient whose oxygen level is almost like, near death. And if the game's not kind of, if we don't get that right, someone's life is at risk. So as a aviation and medicine, I always say both are extremely unforgiving, highly sensitive field. And when we are kind of bring these together, there is zero tolerance for any kind of a mistake. The smallest of the small mistake doesn't cost like, some property or a machine, anything. It costs a life. Someone's mom, someone's dad, someone's son, someone's sister will be lost, and their world will be destroyed if I don't kind of, that's the reason why I'm getting distracted by calls like. So this is what I deal with. And personally, if I don't think so, I would want to comment for all the other women in the world, like how do they balance? Probably everybody is very good at it, and maybe I'm not very good either. But one thing I always put it on the top, like, there are things I can compromise. Like, emergency has been called, some really critical patient that have to go. So in between my holidays, I walked out and come and made a lot of enemies within the family, with the children, lot of consoling, lot of gifts to be bought, a lot of things had to be like, damage control had to be done. But that is kind of a things which I say, okay, fine, I can compromise that. It's just a end of the day, it was a holiday, I can go for another one, which I know maybe in that time and that age for those, the kids will never come back. At the same time, there are certain things which I'll, no matter what, that is a priority and uncompromising. Probably that is my daughter's exam. And she says, Mama, this is the days I need you to be with me. I put aside everything until it is a direst emergency, that without that nothing can happen, which probably she would understand as well. Like if Mama is not there, something is going to go terribly wrong. That's one thing which I never compromise. So it is all about prioritizing, which is like, takes priority over other. Like, is your holiday more important? Your shopping, wedding, like this is my cousin's wedding. I just went last week, not last week, 2 weeks ago, and India's IB chief had to be airlifted. I was outside the wedding hall throughout the wedding. Like I was kind of, and I hardly ever get to attend weddings because I travel a lot. Most of the family events have been blacklisted. They don't even bother inviting me anymore. And even if I get invited, this is my plight. So yes, I mean, those are the things I think the families come to terms with. Things what she does, no kind of other people can't do, and she has to be there. A lot of tears involved, a lot of heartbreaks are there. But you have chosen, that is my choice. I chose it, and I can't compromise with that. And as I said, certain things I compromise, and most of the things I'll not be able to compromise. So it comes with a lot of sacrifice.
To add to what Shalini said, I guess children take immense amount of pride in the achievement of their parents, especially of their mothers. And I've experienced it firsthand when my son asked me not to leave my job because he was very proud of my job, a 3 or 4 year old child telling me this. So that's a trade-off. That's a trade-off. And we chose this, we chose to be here. And of course, we are really proud of the achievement.
That's my ACE card as well. Whenever it comes really difficult, do you want me to quit? Do you want me to quit? Actually, you know what? This is really doing my head in. It is spoiling our family life. Shall I quit? Shall I quit? No, Mom, I can't do that. I can't do that. I make them say that I'm there safe again. So, yes. it is hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
But without family
that's
support, I would say it's impossible to do anything like this.
Absolutely.
Anila ji. Again, Dr. Mandeep is also well traveled. She is also
Ah,
playing multiple roles.
yes,
Let's
yes,
hear from her. What does
absolutely.
she think about this question? Because Shalini is well explained, but as a global traveler and multiple role player, I think Dr. Mandeep, can we hear some points from you on this?
Sure. I'm going to have full disclosure. I have a son in the other room, and he might at some point run in with one of the disturbing moments that Dr. Shalini was just describing. I think it's. I really like the conversation because the level at which I think the level at which the level of responsibility you have and the level of guilt therefore you feel and the way the rest of society is set up is such that you can't walk away and you can't pretend it's never going to be the same as it is for your husband, firstly. And there are certain expectations I think the older generation have of us, like our mothers and our mother-in-laws and our grandmothers. And often actually it's the women that have these expectations than the men, because the women think, well, you have this other role to play. You have the role of a mother, which is more important. You have the role of a daughter, which is more important. Or you have the role of bahu, which is more important. And so I always feel as though work comes second, whereas for my husband, work is allowed to come first. And that in itself causes a tension and a difficulty. So, for example, in a few weeks' time, I'm being asked by UN Women to go to Central African Republic. Cameroon, Mali, these are war-torn countries. And the reason they're asking me is because apart from COVID, we're hearing very little about some of the most difficult places on the planet who are going through real extreme, not only warlike conditions, but where women are being used as the weapon of war. Women are being raped, tortured, kidnapped within these wars. Now, not only does the world not want to know, but also, rightly so, my family are like, well, why would you go? Why is that important? Why are you going to risk your life? You know what's happening to women there. So I feel that there's a sense of responsibility that we have as women to, rightly said, to protect other women, to stand up for other women, to be the support system of other women. Because if we don't do it, then we can see it just doesn't happen. And I hope this is not a conversation just for International Women's Day, because we are over 50% of the population. This should be a conversation that happens every single day, day in, day out. Our voices are not second. There's nothing inferior or less about us. We are, a justifiable part of the population. But the fact that we're still having to fight so hard for these voices to be heard is shocking to me. We're in the 21st century. And we're still having the conversations of celebrating us just on one day, for example, or having our conversations heard just on one day. And it's just not good enough. If I think about how we're represented in Parliament, how we're represented on boards, how we're represented in management meetings, in every single domain, there is a lack of representation, not just by a little bit, but we haven't even reached 30%. We haven't, in most cases, even reached 20%. And just a few days ago, my book was awarded as like a shortlist for the Business Book of the Year 2021. How many women are in those kind of categories? Why are we the reason actually we're not able to take these positions is because there are so many other roles and barriers and borders put upon us. And I think that we almost need an unequal amount of positive support to jump over this. To say we have a little bit of support and that's good enough, or at least you have some support, that's okay. No, if you imagine that it takes, sometimes you have to hear 9 good things to replace the one negative thing that you're hearing. Like there's a subconscious bias. So equally, all the women around you, if you can almost praise them, support them, big them up, show them that that they're being recognized, they're being understood, and that they're having unequal amount of positive support, only then are we going to break some of these glass ceilings so that there's even a chance of being level or equal or fair.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Deepa.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful, wonderful thoughts coming up. Very inspiring, and everybody faces the same problem, it seems, so it's global. I think it's not, it's rural and it's global. That's what I feel. So thank you so much. And now moving ahead, question number 4 is directed to Anumina and Silky, both. It's a very macro question, a very big question. So first I would like to request Anumina ji, in your opinion, how can women entrepreneurs leverage the rapidly evolving tech sector to increase the profitability of their business? Hello. I think she's not available. Yes. In the meantime, Silky, if you can take this up. Yeah.
Hi, good evening to everyone, and I think good morning to Mazid.
Yeah.
So I think I was so engrossed in the discussion, I forgot that I'm a part of a panelist today. And the discussion was because I'm yet to enter in the third phase of life to become a mother. So the conversation went to an end that I was actually like listening like a listener. I was so happy to be knowing what exactly things are happening in women's life. But of course, to add some things, of course, whatever the females were talking about, I definitely feel that the homework needs to be done at home first and then in public. Like everyone was talking about, that the support needs to come from your own house first. And yes, all the females of this panelist are blessed to, of course, I feel that they are blessed to have men supporters in their life. But one thing I definitely say, like, I always give the success of my, the credit of my success to my father, to my mother, and of course to my brother. And now to my husband, of course. So I always believe that if men did not give us that kind of equality, we females would have never achieved it. But yes, I totally agree to that fact that all men are not thinking in the same lines. We really need to educate men first at our home, be a brother, be a son-in-law, that how women need to be treated in public forum. I think that's what I think in I being from education, and that's what we are teaching in our society and education organization also, that men needs to first do their homework right, that how should they respect women, how should they let women come in the picture. But I also feel that somewhere even women need to fight like they are fighting with the other sex is not men. They should also feel that we all are equal. Unfortunately, even today's time, like we are celebrating Women's Day, we never celebrate a men's day or something of that sort. We always, whenever we fight in a forum, we always talk from an angle that we are a woman. Why do we do that? When we want equality in our system, we need to also fight like an equal. And that's what is ultimately very, very important. We cannot have tears in our eyes. We cannot be a crybaby. We cannot say that we cannot do late hour work because I am a woman. So I think this taboo also need to be removed from a female entrepreneur or a female working women in our country, of course, in the world as well. And then only we can proudly say that, okay, we women also need that same equality, pay scale, power like a man. So I because see, I'm coming out of an education fraternity, and I have many women's coming in my profession, but unfortunately, I don't see that passion to actually come up in the board of management. Why? Because of the same reasons, because we either are getting married or we are going to get pregnant, or my mother-in-law is not allowing me. So I think we need to first decide that do we need to live a guilt-free life? It is for are we doing this for ourselves? I think there's a lot of confusion which we females ourselves are showing in the world. And we need to really diminish this taboo that women's are behind men. So first, all the women's need to support each other. That's the first priority, I feel, because I don't see that happening. I'm being very honest about it. Women's are still jealous about each other. They do not want to become friends with each other like men do. So I think if you're wanting to compete with the men on the same platform, we need to think in the same lines like men do, of course. So now, of course, enough of praising men, and nothing like women's. I think we are multitaskers. We are born with immense patience. We know how to carry ourselves. We know how to be a mother, daughter, and I think any role can fit into us. So it's a proud moment. And like Mandeep said, it is not to be celebrated one day. It has to be celebrated each day, because ultimately, I also feel that if we are looking at the development of the world in the economic forum or economic way, I think women are the one area we need to really put an effort in educating them, in making them tech friendly, in actually giving that power, because then only we can go ahead. That is also one of the reality. And when we're talking about technology, Anila, I think coming back to that, the way the world is changing rapidly, the way the technology is coming into the picture, yes, women's need to really have that infrastructure ready, wherein they get that freedom to actually compete with that tech savvy men's already in our society. It's an unfortunate thing that gone are the days we'll have to scrap off the old skills. We'll also have to first be a learner, mentally prepare ourselves to unlearn the whatever we had learned in our childhood, in our graduate days, because this is the time of technology. And being into the pandemic, I think taking this as another boon, I think that India still was very new in terms of digitization, but I still feel COVID has really done that short work for us, where every woman in home also today understands what's a WhatsApp is, what is digitization, what is an online shopping. So which we were not expecting to happen in decade of time. I think we have COVID has given that privilege to all of us. So yes, we need to train our girls. We need to educate more girls. We need to have more infrastructure development by our government. Unfortunately, we do not. As a country, if we see, because of COVID, we all were doing online classes. We immediately had to train our faculties, be a male or female, that how an online class can be taken. But unfortunately, the other side of the coin is that the students were not having the proper infrastructure in terms of the laptops, the mobile phones, or the internet. So I think if we are really looking forward to compete in the world map, the infrastructure really needs to be taken care of very, very fast. Thank you.
Amazing, very nice. A different perspective altogether. Thank you so much. And so is Anumina, is she there? I think her connection.
No, I think she was traveling also. She was on the road.
Her connection was inconsistent.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yes, we are missing her again. So now I have an important question, and which is an open question. Like I would appreciate everyone to contribute to this answer. So entrepreneurship should be taught at home. Girls should be allowed and encouraged to innovate and explore. How important is this for a country like India? And so everyone can contribute. I can start with Anubhaji. And Anubhaji, I would also like to understand that in your household, were you like, what was the environment that was given to you, which made you an entrepreneur?
Coming from an urban middle class family, the quintessential middle class family, it was education, education, education all the way. So from very young childhood, we were taught that if you are not educating yourselves well, then you are not preparing yourself for the life ahead. So from education, one thing led to another. So coming back to your question, Anila ji, I saw a video uploaded by Paytm yesterday, wherein very interesting video wherein they're asking questions. They have a group of men and women on a line, and they're asking one question. So a person has to move a step forward for a yes and a step backward for a no. And initially the questions were whether you can cook for yourself and whether you can fix your home, things like that. And then the questions move towards finance. So whether you can file your income tax return on your own, whether you can you have bought an insurance policy for yourself on your own, things like that. And women were gradually taking steps backward, and it was very, very clear gender divide therein when we talk of finance. So one golden rule I would say that it is to nurture and teach your girls at a young age in finance, make them independent in dealing with their own financial resources and their own incomes. So let them do it by trial and error, by training, by nurturing, by whatever. But that financial inclusion has a very, very strong gender divide, and we must bridge that divide in order to make women be able to compete in this world. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And anybody wants to add to this? Dr. Mandeep or Silky or Dr. Shalini?
I would just say one thing. Although I agree, of course, that we need education, it's not enough. Girls are at the top of their class at high school, at every stage of academia, including university, including degrees, including masters and PhD programs. But yet, still, they don't have the support once they come out into the workforce. And I don't think every woman has to make a choice as to whether she's choosing, to be. Not every woman has to be a career woman. Not every woman has to choose career or children. Not everyone, we should be given the freedom and the support to choose what we need to choose, and that's right for our context. And it might change over time. There might be a period in which you have to focus on your family, and then a period in which you should be allowed to and be supported to focus on your career, and a period in which you're supported to focus on nurturing your elderly parents, and a period and so in all the different stages we have and all the different choices we make, there should be enough support for us to contribute equally, if not more, in society, because the truth is we're doing much more for society, much more, but it's not being rewarded or recognized in the same way. And that is not okay. It's not okay for not to be recognized if you're raising not just your family, but you're contributing to society because you're holding classes for children, for example, or because you're making sure that the old people's homes are being supplied, or there are many, many, many roles that we play that are never recognized, just go unnoticed. And slowly this does degrade people's sense of self-worth and self-esteem, because in this world, the only things that are really recognized are proper, how much you earn, what position you have. And this all has to change for society truly to become equal, or people to be valued equally.
So, Anila, I would like to bring in one point here.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I somewhere feel that we females have always had this pressure of being perfectionist, okay? And if it is a daughter's role, it has to be perfect. It has to be a wife's role, it has to be perfect. Mother, it has to be perfect. I think that needs to be taken while we are getting nurtured by our parents, by our society, because this kind of a pressure never a man is having in his life. So why, once this pressure gets removed from a female's upbringing, I think it'll make a lot of difference when it comes to competing in the society, when it comes of developing the country or the world on the other hand, because at the end of the day, we somewhere are getting confused that should we be good at this or this? I think that's where our individual fight keeps hindering our performances. So I think like men have that freedom to choose that they're working for the earning of the family, in the similar way, I think we females also should be given that power, that whatever role you are doing, be it even a housewife, that is also to be appreciated. And I totally agree with Mandeep on that area. So I think if that starts happening, because see, I am also also born from a family of men. And at the age of 18, even my father was from the background that we get Silky married the moment she passes out of class 12, because he had come from a very small town. But eventually, after entering into a B town like Dehradun and meeting the society, he changed his thought process. And and at very home, I was never treated like a daughter. My father never hesitated to basically see me and my brother at the same level, because it started from home. So my brother also had to enter home at 10 p.m. if I was at to. It was never like my brother can enter at 12 and the girl has to enter at 9 p.m. The rules were totally same, and I think that's what I appreciate about my father today, and that's what I'm also now serving into an education industry, is telling the girls that don't, again I'll say the same thing, don't be a crybaby, you have to fight for your own rights like a man.
Wonderful, wonderful. You have brought a different energy altogether. And yes, I also believe, I think women, they need more clarity than anything. So clarity in themselves. So anybody else wants to add to it?
I was just going to say one thing, Neela, just very quickly.
Sure.
I do think that right now, so, this book focuses on values. And I think it's the female values, to Silky and Dr. Shalini's point, the values of compassion, the values of collaboration, the values of community, the values of caring, and the values of good communication. These are the ones that are really going to set us apart in the future. Already we're seeing that leaders that have these values are the leaders of the future. So thankfully, if we can just be given enough space, our values will lead to a better society. Space and support. Thank you.
Yes. Beautiful. And this book is like, I was just out of curiosity, I just went through the preview of this book, and I'm so like overwhelmed that it has one review of Dalai Lama as well. This is like
they said that the Dalai Lama said, if we come from a place of values, we will lead a happier, successful, more fulfilling life.
Yes. Wow.
So
beautiful.
It's important.
Anila ji, yeah, I have ordered a book. It's coming tomorrow.
Okay, I am also thinking of, and I would like to be friends also with Dr. Mandeep, right? And to know more on this book. So Deepakji, we should hold a session also on, on this top subject. So thank you so much.
We will add one more question, and then we'll take messages from each one of them, and then we can give both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been a wonderful session. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, can I take this question? This is an important question. Access to capital is a challenge. Is it right? And what are the few options women entrepreneurs can explore? So,
Anubha should be the right person to start with.
Yes. And even we can check with Dr. Shalini also, because she's into capital intensive.
So, access to finance, access to capital is a challenge, more so for women, because coming from a traditional mindset, we don't treat women as the breadwinners of the family. So you are not going to bet your last penny on a woman's business. Rather, if it is a man's business, then probably the family will, kind of put in the resources for the man to succeed. That's one thing. We have a concept of Stridhan in Hinduism, at least, wherein women are giving jewelry it's a traditional concept, but then it's not, and it is supposed to be the woman who is having the ownership rights to that Sridhan or the jewelry, whatever. However, the society functions in a different way. And then a very important problem is when you talk about bank debt. I'm not talking about the venture capital here, but the bank debt, because they are generally linked to personal guarantees and collateral securities. So women do not have properties in their name in general, and even if they don't have that kind of freedom. Maybe for some stamp duty concession or something, they might have some properties in their name, but then they don't have the power to leverage that property as a collateral for raising bank loans. VCs are different story altogether. As I told you, the difference, 52% of men could raise their ask up to an extent of 52%, whereas for women it was only 25%. And then also in terms of numbers of women-led enterprises, only 16% of them got the VC funding. So it's a lens of a gender lens is there. Women are generally considered not too serious about their professions. So we mentioned about chef, a profession of a chef. So somebody told me that women could be very good cooks, but they cannot be chefs. I mean, you see all the successful chefs, they are men. Why is it so? So they said that probably women cannot excel beyond a certain level at any profession. I said no. The reason, very simple reason, is whenever money, professional competence, success, and rewards that is linked to a certain profession or certain skill or a certain trait, then that becomes a man's domain. Somehow it is not the women could be very good home cooks, but when it comes to a profession, the society is not supportive enough for them to take it as a profession, the long grueling hours, etc., etc. Same analogy works for almost all the professions. So capital is a difficult ball game, more difficult for women. However, it is changing. There are a lot of impact investors who are investing in women-led enterprises, and there are a lot of even other than impact investors, general angel investors, who are also valuing women for the kind of traits and kind of competencies they bring to the table in terms of multitasking, in terms of emotional quotient, in terms of creativity and other things. That's from me. Thank you.
So when you said Anubaji, 17%, because the startup funding percentage itself is 5 to 10%. So that 17% is of that 10% overall funding company
Yes.
is getting.
Overall, 17%, 16% is of women-led and rest is men-led enterprises.
Yeah. So, Mandeep, you are also an investor. How do you see this position? Women entrepreneurs getting not funded. Capital is a challenge for them.
Actually, I deliberately invest and work for funds and collaborate with funds that invest in women. But the truth is that the landscape is so biased, and there is such the percentage of women that are funded is so few that it's like tiny, tiny, tiny drops in the ocean. I absolutely agree with what Anubaji said. It's not considered. It's not considered as a game changer. People don't think that this, and yet, the big female entrepreneurs have had to fight so much harder that actually the truth is you never back an idea necessarily. You back a founder, you back the entrepreneur, you back that passion, you back that unstoppable, unreasonable fight that a founder has. And you definitely see it in Dr. Shalini when she talks about knowing that she's fighting for people's lives. Now, when you have a founder that has that type of passion, or the type of passion that all of us have had to have because we've had to jump over so many hurdles, or the type of passion that you see so many women entrepreneurs have, we have to jump higher, longer, further, and 10 times over. Then why would you not back those kind of founders? Because they're not going to stop until they get the job done. So I just think you're almost if the point of investment is return on investment, then you're actually shortchanging yourself by not investing in women.
Yeah,
That has to gain ground and strengthened by women like you, successful entrepreneurs, thinkers.
So true. So true.
Helen, you want to add something last minute because you've been.
Yes, absolutely. Because I totally agree when there's a difference between a woman and a man raises fund or the family supports. I'll give a small example. I extensively kind of also travel for my work in terms of might go to UK very often as well, or in India. And my brother-in-law is a VP for Belkins, and he does the same. He travels extensively as well. He lives in LA. So I can see the way he's treated, when oh my God, he works so hard. And when it comes to me, it says just she ever care about a family. So this is the kind of a discrimination. And when it comes to man in the family says I'm totally it is totally different from I come from a family of my grandfather was a agriculturist, like a zamindar kind of a thing, and I was the first girl to be educated in the entire family from my dad's side. But the encouragement what I had, the promotion of being a girl, go out, do this, get it there, become a doctor, whatever it was, among those totally uneducated kind of background, though my dad was educated and my mom's educated from my grandparents' perspective, and then my grandmother was illiterate as well. But the amount of energy they put in me to go get what I want, become what I want, it was totally different. So it doesn't even matter about the education. It's just about the matter of the mentality of the people. And then when it comes to a man, sometimes there'll be a lot of puja done, havans done, mannats done for his business success. When it comes to women, let me see which mother-in-law sits and does puja for a daughter to become successful. This is exactly what the attitude is. And forget about outsider investing in your own family doesn't invest in you. They don't even invest in your dreams. They don't even invest in your success. They don't even applaud in your success. This is where we start with. So getting the invest from outside, I think it takes a lot, especially as Silky said, it's a kind of it's a kind of a cash intensive market, and as well, the aviation and things like that. It is not a joke for men to sit up and notice you and take it for granted that yes, this woman is serious. But I've been extremely fortunate that no matter where I go, how I go, whatever way I approach, money or not, the respect's always been there. The appreciation for the hard work is there. They always say oh my God, you are the one woman who never give up, are you? Kind of a thing. That takes you a long way. That's what always I say. There's no alternate word for hard work and perseverance. And it's always laced with ethics. You, no matter a man or a woman, you will get what you want in life.
Thank you. Anila ji, you can ask the final messages.
Yes. This has been overwhelming, and this is a very, everybody is opening their heart out and speaking so authentic, with so much of authenticity. So I'm sure this is actually going to give a lot of clarity to so many other women entrepreneurs who are going to watch this program. So thank you very much. And going ahead, I would like to have a message from each one of you. And also, if you can just point out the sectors which will, which are more lucrative for women entrepreneurs. So I start again with, I start with Dr. Mandeep. Over to you.
Sorry, did you say me?
Yes.
Yes. Could we start with maybe Silky or someone else? There's a printer. My son is using the printer. I will put my hand up as soon as I'm ready. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So Silky, over to you. Your message. Yeah.
So the message is very simple to all the girls and boys out there who are yet in education, pursuing their career. I think we all should at least master in one skill, which will actually give them a job security, which is very much needed in today's time. Apart from degree, every individual need to master at something or the other. So either make your hobby into a skill and then the career, or while you're in education, basically try to explore yourself and definitely have one certification in your hand. And I can give you in writing that you will be a successful person for sure.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I was going to say that, just to build on that, I don't think there should be any industry or sector that you shouldn't think is possible for you. As a female, that everything is possible. And much more importantly, you should do whatever you are truly passionate about, whatever is your purpose, your dharma, whatever song you're meant to sing, as in whichever profession you're meant to be in. Because actually, whether it's STEM, whether it's as an astronaut, whether it's within science, think how quickly the vaccine was created. I don't think there's any industry that we can't make a huge difference. And it would be a mistake to be in an industry or a sector that we think is particularly easier or better for women, because it would be a mistake to turn yourself away from what really motivates you and what really sets you on fire. And that's the whole point of the values, that if you go by the values that really matter to you, you won't go wrong.
Thank you. Wonderful message. And I would request Dr. Shalini and then Anubhash too.
Of course, to get where you are or what profession you choose, I totally agree with Mandeep that you always pursue what you're passionate about. There's no profession in the world which is higher or lower or kind of better or least. No matter what we do, if we do it to the perfection and with passion, it always comes with it's not the success. What matters is a satisfaction. Is it rewarding enough for you that you go to bed with a smile on your face? You can be just anything in the world. Sometimes when I look at my secretary, she goes home with a smile and she bought me an expensive gift, which has kind of made me very guilty. She shouldn't have. But I thought she must be really happy with me. She must be really happy with the job, because if she's not, she wouldn't have thought about me going out of her way out, taking a mom to go shop for me. So I think that is what is most important. No matter what we do, end of the day, if you like it, if you're passionate about it, and we enjoy it, you may be a mother, you may be kind of a housewife, you can be a businesswoman selling small things at home, could be entrepreneur, selling puppets. Doesn't matter what it is, it just has to make you satisfied end of the day and be happy about it. I think if you're passionate and happy about what you do, I think success will always follow you. And success is a very, very subjective word.
Yes, so well said. Thank you so much. A beautiful message on this day. I would request Anubhashi to please share her message to all of us.
Thanks. So I'm sharing not one, but 4 messages.
Oh, wow.
Very, very, in short words. So network strongly, communicate. Don't shy away from sharing your ideas publicly. Just because you are good at what you do will not make you grab attention. Don't fall in the likability trap. So even though women are expected to be less aggressive, nurturing due to the stereotypes placed on us, we have to draw very strong boundaries, even at the risk of being labeled rude or unpleasant or even over aggressive. The third one, read, read, read. For knowledge is power and the devil is in the details. And finally, mentor other women. Make their journey less arduous than yours, pull them up. So these are my, 4 bits of mantras or wisdom from my experience for the upcoming women entrepreneurs. And thanks so much for this wonderful discussion. Just one small point, which often people say that why do we celebrate Women's Day at all? We should, all days are Women's Day, or we should have a Men's Day as well. So it's not about that. It's not about, celebrating women like you and me, or empowering women like you and me. It is about empowering millions out there who are not as privileged as us. That's the underlying thought and the underlying idea of Women's Day. Thank you.
Let's just kind of add a little word here that there was a kind of a party I was attending to, that it is a dinner party for all the women who had some achieved things like tomorrow night. And I said, it's only for, I was telling my co-founder, it's only for the people who are awardees, it's only women who got awards. So he said oh my God, that's going to be so boring if you don't have any men in that party. And I would say, I think we have left all the men in this panel that very boring and lonely, making me feel that. But I truly, we as women, I think we really appreciate what you people give it back to us in terms of encouragement, empowering us, giving us a right. It is not a small deal. Not every man can do that. And if you are there sitting and bringing all of us together to speak up, give our thoughts out, we truly appreciate this. It means a lot to us. And sorry that we have left you on your own and we didn't ask you any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak, for making all of this happen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Deepakji. Thank
And
you, everyone.
speechless to Dhool Dhoop Dhakka.
yes, thank you. So I would
Beautiful.
like Deepak ji to kindly conclude this session. And I'm very, very thankful to all of you for being part of this evening, and all the best. And let's have a happy Women's Day to all the women of the world and to the men also. So let's make this world a better place to live. Thank you so much. This is Anila Rampuria signing off, and with the last message from Deepak ji and Arun ji, who have been like, really, it's been wonderful that you thought of curating a session on shepreneurs, and it is very encouraging. Personally, I'm very, very thankful and grateful to you. So over to Deepak ji.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for all the panelists coming and sharing their experiences. We didn't want to, in the future, we do not want to differentiate between men and women, and it should be entrepreneurs. If you talk about entrepreneurs, women play a very important role. The values, culture, the education, it starts with women. Every child, girl or a boy, learns from the mother, and that is where the values, base values are set. And that's an important role which a woman or a mother is going to play. I think they have done a great job in building the society, because if they don't pass on the values, the society will not be good enough to survive. I think we thank all the women in this world for building this great society and great planet. I personally thank all the women and all the panelists today who have shared their thoughts. And we will have more discussions on this, see how we can build the ecosystem to support each one of us. And without taking much time, I will pass on to Arunji. And thank you so much. And it's been a very wonderful, very powerful discussion with a powerful panel. Arunji, for your last couple of words.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Deepak. It has been a wonderful discussion, and thank you everyone to be a part of the panel. Now, when we talk about women entrepreneurship, there are some things that I would like to suggest. So let us look at the formative years. In our early childhood, as it has already been mentioned, there has been a bias. I mean, girls are treated differently, boys are treated differently, and those bias can be removed. Once that is removed, it will automatically result into something good. So we have said so many things, but I have a question. Why are boys not taught how to cook? Why is it only that the girls need to get that training? Because it is needed. And we keep wondering, women keep wondering why our husband can't cook for us. But then they have to ask the question, are they teaching their sons to cook? So that's one thing. The other is, during the formative years, we have got so many different ways of thinking, and the way we approach livelihood is mostly like jobs. So we need to shift from there and understand that entrepreneurship can also be an option. Now, today, when we see that everyone has started looking to a bright future and women are contributing so much, I would again want to refer to our book, which says Entrepreneurship by Design. And in fact, everything is by design. You can design your life. So I would today invite all women to take that position of a designer and design whatever outcome they want. Okay. Then one more important thing is that everyone makes mistakes. But the correct thing, the important thing is that you need not do all the mistakes yourself. You can always learn from others' mistake. And that's where the ecosystem comes into place. So Dhool Dhoop Dhakka, we have tried to create that ecosystem, and where each one can support each other by sharing lessons learned, and everyone can benefit from that. Okay. And then I would say that today, the advancement of technology has made it possible that all women can actually control the world from their strong fort, that's their home. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And we will this video tomorrow on all the social
Yay.
media. Please share it on your network as well. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.